And welcome into the MLB Hot Stove Daily here at the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Appreciate you guys taking the time late on a Thursday evening to check in for what's happening around the world of baseball. We got some big headlines, some signings that we promised you were going to be happening in the lead up to the winter meetings have already begun. Severino ends up going to the Oakland, well, I guess we can't say Oakland A's anymore, but he is headed to the Athletics, however they want to be called, the Las Vegas Athletics of Sacramento. But he goes out west to the A's. Let us know in the comments section how surprised you are by that, and let's dig in. Have you guys ever just had one of those days where you just need the sports world to take your mind off of everything that's going on, all the noise in your life? Well, today, hopefully, baseball will be that for me. Got a lot of noise at work and just need to move forward with some good baseball news. And we're getting a few headlines out there. Red Sox, Yankees all meeting with Corbin Burns, looking for an additional meeting with Soto, all those types of things. Soto's market seems to be getting close to something actually happening there. So as a baseball fan, I'm rooting for these storylines to kind of take over and see what really happens as we get closer to the winter meetings. Welcome in, Mark. Welcome in, Vida. Welcome in, Sarah. I'm really excited to see what happens over the next couple of days as we gear up for the winter meetings. Expect late Saturday, early Sunday to be a little bit slower. And then Sunday night, when we get the Hall of Fame inductions and so forth, we might get a flurry of activity before. But after that Hall of Fame induction, or the Hall of Fame announcement, expect it to be a ghost town for about an hour or two minimum. And then Monday, you should start to see some activity start to pick up once again. But headline today, Luis Severino leaves the New York Mets after one season and heads out west to the Athletics. Let's go ahead and dig in on that one. Go ahead and pull this story up for you guys. It was a huge number. When I saw it pop up on my phone, I was like, are they serious? Is this a joke? Could this really be a thing? Luis Severino, is he really going out west? Is he giving up pretty much having any chance at being in a contending race to go out there and be a quote-unquote ace of the staff? Because that's what he's getting paid like. So Let me see if I can get this page to finally pull up for you guys. What? Ryan? I don't see that one, Ryan. That would be incredible if it was true, but yeesh. I don't see that one, Ryan. You made me check that one real quick because that would have been a shocker for me. All right, back to the headliner anyway. Is the A's getting Luis Severino, 3 years, $67 million, $10 million signing bonus. Look at the deal itself, roughly 23-ish million, 22.5 million per season. Just an incredible number as far as what he's actually worth on the open market. Severino did have a great year with the Mets last year, but is it really worth $67 million? I don't know about that one. So, as far as Severino goes, they do need an ace for that staff. I guess he could be their pseudo ace until they get some more pitching to finally come through out there on the West Coast. But for me, the A's, they do have a productive offense. They just need to get a little bit better there. I am curious to see what their next step is going to be to add to their rotation. Are they going to compete for the AL West crown next year or a World Series? Absolutely not. Does this even put them in the top three? No. I would say this probably puts them in contention for the fourth best team out in the AL West ahead of possibly the Los Angeles Angels. Now, that's not exactly a great, boon for the organization, but they got to start somewhere. They want to hit the ground running when they get to Vegas. This is probably going to be their first big-time addition that might actually be on the roster by the time they get to Vegas. So maybe they're just trying to get to something along that line as far as having a good semblance of a team, something that's around the 75, 80 win mark by the time they get to Vegas, and then they go all out with a bunch of signings. That would be very uncharacteristic of the A's, but again, this is an A's organization that's been trying to trim payroll basically since I've been born. So, maybe the move to Vegas will allow them to free up money. That's at least the impetus they gave, or the tone they set for Major League Baseball in their effort to move to Vegas, that they were going to change their operating structure. Major League Baseball's Players Association was for it in that regard, that they thought they'd have another team out there, a major payroll team. I'll wait. I'll believe it when I see it anyway, but maybe this is the first step to at least being a competitive team more than they have been in recent years. So good on them for at least acquiring a starting pitcher. I do think they're overpaying Severino quite a bit here. I think we're probably talking a good $15 million over what his market probably is worth. They did circle back to Sean Manaea before they went after Luis Severino, or at least locked the deal down with Severino. Manaea, to me, is a little bit better pitcher. And I can completely understand why Manaea said no. He didn't really like his first go-around. Organization basically shafted him in the end, traded him off, etc. And things just didn't work out towards the end of his career there with the Oakland A's. Now the A's of Sacramento. I don't even know what they're going to call themselves yet, but a good move here to start things off for them in free agency. As far as some moves that we saw around the rest of Major League Baseball, it's a bunch of meetings. Corbin Burns meeting with a bunch of different teams. We saw the Red Sox looking to get another meeting with Juan Soto. Tells me that they're really curious about what his availability is as we get closer to him actually making a decision. Now, we were led to believe before Thanksgiving he was doing the meet and greet. Hey, how you doing? My name's Juan Soto. What's your facility look like? Where are you going to have me in the lineup? What's it going to be like as far as your free agent acquisition after you sign me? What's your roster going to look like in 5 years? What's your long-term plan for me if I do start to decline? Well, the second half of that contract, are you going to have space for me at DH? Or am I going to be the albatross and everybody just regrets the signing, or my signing with your team? Those are all the meet and greet questions that they did before Thanksgiving. The week of Thanksgiving, they decided, hey, go ahead and get in some offers. We'll kind of see what teams are interested. And that was for all teams, not just the 5 teams that are considered the favorites. Again, those are the Dodgers, Mets, Yankees, Red Sox, and Blue Jays. Teams that are on the periphery were also supposed to be included in that mix. Rangers, Padres, Nationals, Phillies, pretty much any team that needed a power hitter. Ultimately, it still looks like it's a 5-team race here. Giants, I thought, would have eventually joined this race. Seems like they haven't even tossed their name in the ring for Juan Soto. They've already turned their sights to Corbin Burns, which is why some reports have said that he's going to sign independent of what happens with Juan Soto. I think that the teams that are in there for Juan Soto will quickly pivot to a Corbin Burnes because they're going to have that money to spend. That's going to drive up the price for Corbin Burnes. So I do think the Burnes signing happens after the Juan Soto deal. Now, how quickly could this happen? Well, I just went through the before Thanksgiving, the week of. This past week, this current week that we're on anyway, they're asking for better offers, essentially. They've got it pared down really to 4 teams that have offered multiple offers among them. Dodgers, interestingly enough, have basically said, hey, we're not going to bid against ourselves. We're not going to join the bidding. However, we are very interested in Juan Soto. If the bidding is once you get close to the very end of the bidding, if Juan Soto wants to play for the Dodgers are interested in discussing a contract with him. But we're not going to bid against ourselves. So they've stepped themselves out of this conversation for at least the time being. So it's interesting to see the Red Sox trying to make one more impression on Juan Soto to say, hey, this is really where you should be. You can compete against the Yankees. You can be the star of this team and take over for Rafi Devers. All those kinds of things. The Blue Jays are going to make a very similar argument. You are going to be the face of this team, not Vlad Guerrero Jr., not Bo Bichette. Those guys are on one-year deals. We're going to sign you for $15 million. You're going to be the guy on the marquee. You're going to be the guy competing for MVPs, not Aaron Judge, where if he goes back to the Yankees, he's automatically going to be playing second fiddle. If he goes to the Dodgers, he's going to be playing second fiddle behind Shohei Ohtani. If he goes to the Mets, he could argue that he's the best player on that team, but then you have to worry about the Lindors, the Alonsos if they bring him back, those types of pieces as well. And, of course, it's the Mets. They're going to always be in there for top-flight free agents. I would imagine there's going to be some more free agents next year that are going to be similarly valued by that Mets organization. So, they're trying to get those offers crystallized for Juan Soto right now. Now, as we got towards the end of this week, we're starting to hear some more rumblings about not necessarily a decision being imminent, but that Juan Soto is sorting through the offers. Now, what does that mean? I'm sure Juan Soto, before we even got to this stage, had an idea of where he wanted to play, but he never really put pen to paper anywhere, obviously. If he had, he would already be signed. But I think he knew coming into this offseason where ideally he would like to play. I'm sure these meetings have opened up his eyes to some new possibilities, and I'm sure he's taking them under consideration. But ultimately, it's going to come down to, 1, who's going to pay him the most, and 2, where does he really want to play? Everybody will try to tell you there's one reason or another why a player wants to go here or there. Lower taxes, a better roster, better pitching staff, better ballpark to hit in, all kinds of different factors. Who the manager is. It ultimately comes down to who's ultimately going to offer me the most money. And then, of course, where do I have the best chance to win? That's why you see veterans sign all the time for less. Juan Soto is not going to have to worry about that. He's going to do very well in free agency. On the pitching front, since you mentioned Max Fried there, Ryan, it does look like Max Fried is the number 1 target for the Red Sox on the pitching side of things. I mentioned this a few times yesterday as well, but it seems like they're trying to push for Max Fried over a Corbin Burnes. Now, for me, I would rather have a Corbin Burnes, but the longer-term contract and the more money invested there might be a little bit more of a deterrent for the Red Sox. They would rather, it seems to me at least, from the outside looking in, that they'd rather have a little bit shorter of a contract and have a higher AAV. I do think Burnes is going to have a lower average annual value, but I think Fried is going to be a little bit shorter term deal, but with a higher AAV. Not by much, but when you're taking off 2 extra years of that contract worth over $30 million, you're talking about a 60 to 70, maybe even an $80 million difference over the lifetime of that deal. That's the kind of savings that teams, like the Red Sox might look to try to pounce on and just realize, hey, we have an opportunity here to really pounce on a Juan Soto. We already got Aroldis Chapman. We're looking at another starter in addition to Fried. They could really go out there and spend this offseason, which, thank goodness, they're finally deciding to do so. Rangers are interested in Jock. They are interested in Bellinger. Bellinger's headlines, I believe today, from John Heyman, the Yankees, Astros, and Mariners, I believe, were the teams that he had mentioned has specifically checked in on Cody Bellinger. Of course, they're going to have to eat some money out there in Chicago, but we'll see where he goes. Roque Sasaki to the Rangers, please. Right there with you, Ryan. That's the one I'm hoping for. Free agent class the next 2 years are awful. Well, we've gotten very lucky with the free agent class of the last 3 years. I mean, we're talking about Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, Juan Soto. That's arguably 3 of the top 5, top 10 players in the game. And for my money, I would say Aaron Judge is probably in that top 3. Ohtani is clearly the best player in the game right now. I don't even think it's a question. I think he's so far out in front, it's now a question of whether or not he's the greatest player to ever play the game, even better than Babe Ruth. I am already making the argument he's that guy right now. Now, the longevity is going to have to come. If he doesn't pitch again, there's going to be some questions. But for me, he's going to get healthy. He's going to do better. And I think he's going to be playing at an MVP / Cy Young level for at least the next 3 to 4 years. If he does just that, I think he cements himself as the greatest player to ever play the game. Sorry, Angels fans, you could have had the greatest player ever go into the Hall of Fame wearing an Angels cap. I think that's clearly going to be a Dodgers cap after he wins a World Series title in 1 year away from your organization. Kyle Tucker next year, Vladdy, yes, Bo Bichette as well, but it doesn't necessarily have the same cachet that the last couple have had. For me, I do like Soto. I think he's a little bit a tier below the Judges and the Ohtanis of the world. So this year's already a little bit lower, but the class this year is a lot deeper in some areas. Like starting pitching, there's a lot of starting pitching on the market right now. First baseman is a little bit thin. There's only a couple, but first base is never really a sought-after position in free agency. They seem to wait till late in free agency to sign over the last 5-6 years or so, unless they're a truly game-changing player. Vlad Guerrero Jr. next year has a chance to be one of the first basemen that baseball has traditionally valued, like an Albert Pujols type or a Prince Fielder type. Pete Alonso had that opportunity this year, but I don't think anybody's valuing him at a $200 million level. You still had Alex Bregman on this year's class, so this year was still a pretty good free agent class. Kyle Tucker being a free agent next year, Framber Valdez could be a free agent, Bo Bichette, Vlad Guerrero Jr., among others. Even these guys that are signing one-year deals this year could be free agents next year. So I still think it's going to be a good winter meetings next year as well. But, I really like the way this free agent class is shaped up. With Sasaki coming in, they're going to change the way the bonus pools are structured. Going into next year, some contracts that might have been agreed to might no longer be agreed to. Just some interesting moves that are going to be happening this offseason. And then we'll have to see what happens at the trade deadline. Who's really in it? Who's going to trade some pieces off their roster to save money? Who's going to be, who's the surprise team that we're going to see that, nobody's really expecting? Fried feels like Snell 2.0. I wouldn't go that far. I would say Fried is far more consistent of a starting pitcher than Snell ever was. Snell would always have a great year, Cy Young level, and then be a 4 ERA guy. He'd have another Cy Young caliber season, and then go back to being a 4.5 ERA guy. This past year was the first time he really showed some more consistency, and that was after a rough start to the season. This was the first year he really showed some more consistency than what he has in years past. And so I value Fried a little bit more. Now the Cy Young level is a little higher for Snell. But the ceiling is a little higher there, but I would rather have the consistency of a Fried than the peaks and valleys of a Snell. But, that's why the Dodgers went out there and got him, because they have 4 starting pitchers that are all Cy Young caliber already there, including Snell now. They have that flexibility that if he has one of those down years, they have 3 other aces in that rotation to make things work. Rangers should trade Leote and Lowe, Huff, and Foscue. Foscue, I would absolutely not trade. I would hold on to him. I think he is going to be a good offensive piece for them next year. They just need to give him more consistent at-bats. I think next year is the year that we see Foscue take the role Duran had on this team the past couple of years. I think Duran rebuilt his value a little bit in the second half of the year, but I agree with you on Huff. He needs to go somewhere else. Rangers don't believe in him. They need to clear the 40-man roster spot and bring in another AAA-level catcher that they'd be comfortable bringing up and using in the lineup whenever they do call him up, not just being there a warm body who can catch in an emergency. Rangers just really have never given him a chance, and that's on them for doing so. As for Leote Tavares, he's a good number 4 outfielder at this point, but I think the Rangers still value his defense. So unless they add a corner outfielder where then they can cycle in Carter and Langford into center, unless they're able to add that corner outfield bat, which they do need to add some offense to this team. But unless they do that, I think Leote stays. Otherwise, I would trade him. Trading him would save him about $5 million and give him another $5 million that they can spend on a relief pitcher. As for Lowe, he was a very good offensive piece for them in the second half of the year. He is very streaky, though. He'll have 3 or 4 good months and then followed by 3 or 4 absolutely atrocious months. He needs to get a little bit more consistent, but there aren't too many first base options that you could immediately turn to and say, That guy's better. That guy's better. That guy's better. Right now in the free agent market, I would guess the best one that would fit in there would probably be Christian Walker. Pete Alonso would be a nice uptick as far as power, but I would argue overall they're very similar players with value. Nathaniel Lowe, the better defensive player, better better bat to ball skills. Alonso has better ability to translate that power into a game and be more of a game changer in that regard. So I would value them very similarly. Now, Christian Walker, I would value a little bit more. I would value Walker's defense just a hair more than Lowe. And I think the power is starting to come for Walker, and the offense is a little bit more consistent there as well. Foscue has been terrible at the major league level, yes. But he has not been terrible at the AAA or even AA level. The reason why he's been so terrible at the major league level, he's getting one at bat once a week with like no warning. He has no rhythm at all at the plate, and we've seen how that works before. How many prospects have the Rangers ruined because that's how they handle them? They need to give them some consistent at-bats. You see what happened with Josh Smith when he got consistent at-bats? He blossomed. When Ezekiel Duran got consistent at-bats, what happened? He blossomed. So where are the consistent at-bats coming for Justin Foscue? For those of you, writing off prospects because of how they look on a ninth inning at-bat once a week, come on now. We need to give these guys a little bit more run. I think having him as the, middle infielder to back up Seager and Simeon would be perfect for them, but they have Josh Smith in that utility role as well. Giving him some time out there in the outfield to give him a few more at-bats is a great way to get him in the lineup a little bit more consistently. Now, I'm not saying they need to put him in there every day. I'm not saying they need to start him 162 games a year. But I am saying, say, 70, 80 games a year, giving him, say, 200, 250 at-bats at the major league level, that would be more of a representative season for what Justin Foscue could bring you at the major league level. Until they do something like that, any of you guys saying they're terrible, any prospect, let alone Justin Foscue, we need to start realizing what we're saying when we're saying players are terrible without actually giving them any chance to be consistent. You give Mookie Betts one at bat once a week, ninth inning, no warning. He might be a little bit better than some scrub, sure, but he's not hitting 200. He might hit you 100. That's about it. Then that's with Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Shohei Ohtani. Those guys all need consistent at-bats as well, just like guys at the bottom end of the roster. Now, those guys might be the superstars of the game, and that's why they're getting paid the big bucks, but there's not that much difference when we're talking about the ability to adjust to that type of schedule. And so, writing off players like that, I think we need to be a little bit more patient with those prospects. I'm a really big fan of Justin Foscue, have been ever since the Rangers drafted him, and then ultimately the Rangers blocked him immediately with the signing of Marcus Semien and then Corey Seager. That basically was the writing on the wall for Justin Foscue's future with this organization. The trade to bring in Ezekiel Duran and Josh Smith, more competition up the middle as well. His bat has always been good. The defense was a little bit of a question mark. But for me, I would have brought the bat up 2 years ago. It was that good of a bat, much like Wyatt Langford's. Langford had a good, not great rookie season. I think Langford's going to really break out next year with the power that we saw at all the levels of the minor leagues and throughout college. He got off to such a terrible start with the offense, with that power numbers, that he's going to be better this next season. So those of you, looking to trade your Wyatt Langford stock, get rid of those Wyatt Langford baseball cards, I'm taking every single one of them. Bring them on, boys. I would love to see some more Wyatt Langford in my card collection. Vita, you're right. There's a reason why these guys head to NPB, Korea, to turn things around, consistent play. Absolutely. One case study I'd like you guys to point to is Nick Martinez. I mean, this is a guy that would be passed around, skipped over starts all the time with the Texas Rangers at times. In the bullpen, minor leagues, shuttled. He wouldn't be around for a couple of weeks, and then he'd be thrown in there, because they need a spot start, take up some time in the rotation because their bullpen got blown out the day before. And then they'd throw Nick Martinez out there. He'd give up a gopher ball every inning, and you'd say, this guy's a bum. He goes over to independent ball or to international leagues anyway, comes back over, has a great career with the San Diego Padres, parlays that into a great contract with the Reds, and just got a qualifying offer that he accepted from the Reds. Not everybody's careers are equal. There's going to be different paths to success for everybody at the major league level. And just writing off players for literally one at-bat once a week in the ninth inning for nothing is a little rough. Foskey wasn't even all that at AAA. He was a year ago, and then of course he was shuttled back and forth between the Major League level and AAA last year. Alrighty, so let's dig into a couple other headlines out there. The Red Sox are looking at the possibility of Matt Chapman moving over. He's at least been shown the front office there with San Francisco that he's willing to move over to short to make room for Kim coming over from Japan. I don't know too much about him as well, but Chapman being willing to move over to short is a little bit surprising. That's the headline for me. Chapman seems like a great team guy for that Giants organization, but the priority needs to be improving that roster, getting a middle-of-the-order bat, which is why first order of operations would have them in the market for Juan Soto, and they aren't even in the discussion. They haven't had a meeting with him, nothing. And that, again, now that Farhan Zaidi's out the door, it's Buster Posey's show. Why isn't he in there? That's the questions I would be asking about the front office there with the San Francisco Giants. Zaidi's not here anymore. Why are we not competing for players like this? We need an aircraft carrier in the middle of our lineup. I understand they had some success last year on the international market. Bad luck with injury to start off the season last year. I can't remember the name of the guy they signed, but they got good luck there with that. Maybe they're going back to the well here since they had success there. But to me, this is not going to get you in contention with the Dodgers. Not that any of these moves really would put you over the top to compete with the Dodgers, but that would be the first step of many to get back into contention in that NL West. Otherwise, what are we talking about here? Let's start tearing things down, trade away the pieces that we have on a roster, wait until the Ohtanis of the world are gone off of that Dodgers roster, and then just try to win after that. Because otherwise, we're just twiddling our thumbs here. We're treading water as a 82 and 80 or 81 and 81 team, and we're not going to get better high-profile players coming out of the draft, and then you're just stuck in the middle. That's where you do not want to be in sports, is stuck in the middle. Let's check in on some other headlines. We mentioned last night anyway the possibility of the Mariners looking into Alec Bohm. The ask from the Philadelphia Phillies in return for Bohm was one of Kirby or Gilbert. Understandably, if I was the Mariners, I would slam that phone down so fast that the phone might break. Bohm is nowhere near the level of value of a player that Kirby or Gilbert are. We're talking about two aces on that staff for the Seattle Mariners, and yes, I do believe Gilbert is already an ace on that staff. Kirby, I think, is right there as well. I value Gilbert just a little bit more. I think he's that special of a starting pitcher. But as far as Alec Bohm, he's nowhere near the value of either one of those guys. And so for the Phillies, I understand you want to set the bar very high, but come on now. Let's, set the whiskey down and realize that if you want to improve this team and you're willing to move Bohm, there is a market for him, but we got to be realistic about that market. So we'll see what ultimately happens with the Phillies. They're going to shake things up there with Dave Dombrowski. He's not going to sit idly by while this team continues to underperform in the postseason. The other name that they've been connected to with the Mariners is Nico Hoerner, who's once again found his name in trade discussions. We saw it earlier this offseason with the Kansas City Royals about the possibility of bringing in Singer. Ultimately, the Royals decided to go with the trade with the Reds for India instead of going after Hoerner. Understandably, the injury is the question mark there for Nico, but the Mariners are looking for offense wherever they can get it. So if they can get a diminished value in a guy like Nico Hoerner, maybe they take the risk and say, hey, I know the injuries, et cetera, but we'll take the risk and bring him in. I think he'd be a great get for them, don't get me wrong, but I'm not sure how feasible it is for them to be able to acquire him. I think it's more likely that there are trade candidates or free agents on the market that are easier for them to acquire. Christian Walker has been connected to them. Maybe a trade for a Yandy Diaz at first base. Nolan Arenado at third base might fit as well. But they need to improve that roster offensively. They did a nice job at the trade deadline. They need to continue that here in the offseason. I do like the pitching prospects the Rangers have, just like you, Ryan. I really like Kumar Rocker. He's your pick for Rookie of the Year. Roman Anthony. Anthony, if he breaks camp with the Red Sox, I think he could be the guy that wins it. Position players just generally have an easier time of doing so. It's the rare exception where you get the Paul Skeens that beats out Jackson Merrill, even though I probably would have voted for Jackson Merrill of the Padres instead. He was more impactful day to day, and that would have been my pick for the NL Rookie of the Year. But as far as the Rangers go, I do like Leiter still. I love Rocker. He's really developed over the last year, developed some more command than he ever has. Length is going to be a question mark, and what are they going to do, in the 4, 5, 6 spots of that rotation. Rangers seem like they're going to probably go with, at times, a 6-man rotation. Understandably, they're trying to keep those guys healthy, and they got DeGrom in that rotation. Molly coming off some injuries. They got Gray still there. Dunning is there. Bradford's still there. But they're a little bit thinner than they have been in the last couple of years at the starting pitcher market, which is why Chris Young is looking to add some starting pitching, whether that be bringing back Heaney or Eovaldi via free agency, going the trade route and bringing in Jordan Montgomery, or going outside the organization and bringing in a Sean Manaea. They are looking for some starting pitching. There is some chance that Eovaldi will sign before the winter meetings. We discussed that possibility last night. Braves seem to be really in there. Cubs have been mentioned. Orioles at the beginning of free agency were thought to be a fit for Nathan Eovaldi. I believe they have talked to his camp, but there's no significant traction there, at least according to multiple reports. Now, the Rangers are very much invested in bringing back one of those two guys, Heaney or Eovaldi. I'd be surprised if they didn't bring back at least one of those guys. Now, remember, Rangers have $40+ million to spend. I'm sure if they get the right offer to these guys out there, that they could bump up that number just a little bit if they find an opportunity. The other bit of news from last night's show that I want to share with you before we head off is that the Rangers were kind of playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers. Yes, they needed to add a backup catcher. Yes, they needed to improve their offense behind the plate, and they did so with Higashioka. Best offensive numbers as far as power, home runs, RBIs, OPS, all that were all career highs for Higashioka. He's never going to be an average hitter or a hitter that hits for average, but power numbers are there. The Rangers had a terrible offensive season from both of their catchers that they had at any time last year. They tried to trade for Carson Kelly. It got a little bit better, but not much. He wasn't the same player that he was with Detroit. Was still better than what they had. And Kisner as their backup catcher. But Heim has to be better. That's the beginning and end of the catcher story from an offensive perspective there. But the reason why the Rangers are playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers is because Higashioka speaks Japanese. Why is that important? Because Rohei Sasaki and a number of international free agents are coming over this year and next from Japan. The Rangers have scouted that area of the world extensively for the past 10 years now. They've known Sasaki anyway since he was like 16 years old. They've been connected to him. And I would be surprised if the Rangers were not one of the final 3 teams in the running for Sasaki. Now, Dodgers are still considered the heavy favorite. The Padres are said to be right there as well as a quote-unquote real threat. That coming from John Heyman and a few other beat reporters from the San Diego Padres. Not a huge surprise there. They've had some success, and of course Yu Darvish is there as well. The Rangers have had some success as well with international free agents, and now they have a guy behind the plate who speaks the language that can be a friend to him on the ball club. It's very helpful when you have a battery mate who speaks the same language as you. You can have your own language, be able to understand each other, the nuances of the language, and so that is why I believe the Rangers brought in Higashioka as kind of an added bonus. Sure, I thought they would have added a catcher anyway. Sure, they would have liked Higashioka even without the fact that he speaks Japanese. But it's an added incentive that now you have another reason why a player like Sasaki might come to your team. Now, the reason with the Padres was that he might be going there was because they already have everything set up for a player of his caliber coming in. Well, one of those pieces that would have made it more comfortable for him in San Diego was Higashioka. He's no longer there. He is now going to be in Texas, and we'll see if the Rangers ultimately get something done there. Teodo does look very good. Welcome back, Tim. When will the Mets sign Soto? I'm hoping we'll get some news here in the next 24 to 48 hours on Soto as far as teams being pared down. It's still pretty much anybody's race, but it sounds like the bidding is well over $600 million right now. I saw a couple of articles today posting an idea of it being 15 years, $750 million. I wouldn't be surprised if it got over $700 million at this point. I think Scott Boras is absolutely intent on beating the Shohei Ohtani number, and I don't think he stops until he gets it. I think we're going to see some of those numbers start to trickle in tomorrow, and we could see something in the next 24 to 48 hours with Juan Soto. But do I think the Mets sign him? I think they're right there. I don't think anybody's a favorite. I think Heyman even posted something to that effect as well, that nobody is seen as a leader, quote-unquote, in the clubhouse out of those 5 teams. Brock Porter did fall off the prospect list, but I expect him to get better over the next year or two. Probably a little bit of a reclamation project, just like Jack Leiter. Rangers have had a lot of experience dealing with pitchers who have similar issues adjusting to the minor league schedule, the business of baseball aspects of it, and I expect Brock Porter to rebound at some point. Do the Rangers trade Semien for or Walcott? What? Okay, so I think your question is, do they make room for Walcott on the major league roster by trading Semien, or do they just move him to center field? I don't. I think that's still too early of a conversation. I think Walcott's still at least a year away from being a option at the major league level. He's still very young, and there's no reason to rush him up to the major leagues right now. Now, could he make an impact? Sure, but I think it would really hurt his development to rush him up to the majors this year. Now, next year, if there's an opportunity to free up some dollars and maybe trade a Semien, go younger at the second base spot, if you still hold on to Duran and Foscue and Smith, maybe put one of those guys at second base and trade Semien, let him go elsewhere. But I think Semien's a great fit on this in this clubhouse, and so I don't think he's going anywhere this year. I'd be surprised ultimately if they moved him. It worked out. I mean, they got what they wanted to out of the signings they made in DeGrom, in Seager, in Semien. They did all of those things in the efforts of making it to the postseason and winning a series. They did that. And oh, by the way, they won the first World Series ever in Texas Rangers history. That's above and beyond what they were ultimately expecting out of the deals they signed. Sure, were they hoping for it? Absolutely. Sure, were they building for that goal? Absolutely. But did they really have, in their wildest dreams, a realistic vision that said, hey, A plus B equals World Series victory? No. And I think they'd be kidding themselves if they had thought so at the time. I mean, we're talking about Jacob deGrom. You worried about the injury risks. You worried about the length of the deal with Seager. You worried about the money that you're spending on all these free agents. You're adding a second baseman when you really don't pay second baseman in the major leagues right now. Jose Altuve is one of the exceptions that you actually pay at second base. And so here you are spending $175 million on a second baseman. Those are some big risks the Rangers took, and it ultimately worked out. So Rangers did a great job bringing in those free agents. I would expect them to still be still active in free agency, not just this year, but next. They have some money coming off the books this year, obviously. That's why they have $40+ million that they can spend. They're going to have a little bit more coming off the books in the next year or two as well. So the Rangers are going to get better. Rangers for years could not develop pitching. I would agree with you, Ryan, but it has gotten better. But we shall see, what happens with Walcott. I do love Walcott in the Rangers minor league system. But appreciate you guys taking the time, joining us late on a Thursday evening. We'll be live for you guys again tomorrow evening. Probably be a late one as well, unfortunately. I'm expecting to have to work late tomorrow. So it'll probably be around 9:30, 10 o'clock by the time we do actually get live. Appreciate you guys joining us. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. And y'all have a great one.